This is Wednesday morning of the intensive effort week here, and it's June the 21st. We just decided there. This is the 8:30 session. We want to do two things if we can in the next hour and a half. One is we're going to go through the example that we did briefly 2 weeks ago of higher order factor analysis using the technology proficiency self-assessment data that is in week 1 posted, and it's about this instrument that's now on the screen, and that's primarily so that everybody in the room and others listening can understand about assignment 1. Assignment 1 is a factor analysis. It's either an exploratory normal factor analysis or a higher order analysis, or both. And the question that came up is, when is it appropriate to do higher order factor analysis? And for many of your data sets, it's not, so you don't have to do it. But I want to go through this example where it is appropriate, and so that's what we're doing right now. Then we're going to pull up the data that is from the brief climate change attitude survey instrument that many of you filled out, and Joe Huerta typed in the responses to that. So Joe, if you're online, get ready for in about a half hour, we'll be up on your data. And so the challenge to Joe is for he and a couple of others, I said this is okay for him to use for his assignment 1, 2, 3 even. But as far as final paper, he just needs to go out and get at least 20 more on his own and add to it, so that everyone who does their own paper based on this Common Core will have different papers, is the goal. And so far I know of 3 people in our class who don't have reasonable access to data. Everybody okay? That's our goal for this morning. And okay, so higher order factor analysis, this is an example. I was explaining a little earlier, the technology proficiency self-assessment instrument was created in the days before self-efficacy was a common term. Self-efficacy in our definition means competence in your confidence in your competence. That is, I'm not only trained to do the job, but I feel like I can do it. It turns out that self-efficacy is one of the strongest indicators of success as a teacher, including persistence in teaching. That is, do you stay with it or quit? One of our best educational research faculty at the University of North Texas is named Robin Henson. So Robin, if you're listening, it's a compliment to you. But his doctoral dissertation about 20 years ago at Texas A&M was on teacher self-efficacy, and that was one of the earliest in the field. He used really sophisticated multivariate techniques to show that this is a core foundation concept that everyone ought to be paying attention to. And so Robin's not only a great statistics person, but also had a good idea. He wasn't the only one, I'm sure, that was working on self-efficacy. Why is that relevant? Well, anything that says I feel confident that I could or something like that is really automatically identifiable these days as self-efficacy. When Meg Ropp, who is listed, I hope, at the bottom of this instrument, does it say? If you can scroll them down. We always, yeah, by the way, when you build your own instruments, put something like this on them, adapted by our Christian and G. Kinetic, based on TPSA, created for and used by permission of Dr. Margaret Merlin Ropp. Meg Ropp is, I think I mentioned maybe the first day, I think she recently retired as Director of Assessment for the state of Michigan. But Meg had her PhD 1997, I believe, and this was one of the things that came out of her dissertation. The original version of this instrument had 6 constructs, as I recall, and it had a different rating scale, not strictly a Likert scale. And so when we converted it, with Meg's permission, we took the strongest 4, the most consistent 4, and then we changed it to Likert. We also Meg had pretty much already isolated it down to 5 items per construct and modified a few other things, but it was her foundation work. This blueprint for this instrument was the National Educational Technology Standards. That was version 1 of the ones for teachers that were finally formally adopted in 1999, as I recall. But I think Meg was one of the people on the committee. Just a short little side story, and I may have mentioned this Monday too, but most people who do good work in these areas have other traits that they're really good at too. And if you remember about Meg, she was the first person we know of in our whole country to put surveys online. She had a FileMaker Pro system. Her first job was assistant professor at the University of Albuquerque. And we were trying to do FileMaker, not FileMaker Pro, we were trying to do DBase 2, DBase 3, and all this stuff, and it wouldn't run past one user in Texas. And then we got a URL. In those days, by the way, we didn't have graphical user interfaces.
Right.
You had to just cut and paste into your command line window. And we got a URL about this one that worked from this lady, and so we were so excited we got plane tickets and flew to Albuquerque to see how it really worked. And so I think Meg should be in the history books someday as the first educational automatic survey online administration system. So SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics and all of those others that you all know now really owe a great debt to her. But in our world, the instrument is what she's famous for. And Meg's really good at quantitative techniques too. If you go to ARA in New York, I think Meg loves New York, and she's been an ARA person forever, so you might bump into her. So tell her you looked at her instrument when you do. By the way, we decided it was July 22nd?
21st, I think.
21st,
I don't
yeah.
know. I'll have to look it up.
No, July.
July.
Yeah, no, the
The
deadline
due
to
date.
submit to ARA that some of you ought to.
Hang on, I'm looking. I think it's July 24th.
4th. Oh, good. It's better to tell you too early than too late.
That's true.
And so, as far as where you're going to submit those presentations that you will have and so forth, ARA now has a repository for the full papers. In the old days, ARA only was the presentation platform in ERIC, the Educational Resources Information Clearinghouse, was where we put all of our papers. And so if you Google some of our old papers, you'll see them pop up in ERIC, and that was because usually we would go to ARA Present, actually give 2 camera-ready copies at the desk of ERIC, and if they were approved by the ARA panel, then they would go to the library people for indexing and citing, and that's how they would get into ERIC.
July 24th.
July 24th. Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I strongly encourage you on the instruments that you develop, if you derive them from somewhere else, just say exactly what it was and put it on the bottom of the instrument. You know, adapted is a good word. It depends. If it's based on because you only took the general form and wrote your own items, that's also a good word. But give credit where credit's due. Everybody okay? All right, so back up to the top. All right, the TPSA was designed so that the first 5 items are about email. The next 5 items are about the World Wide Web. The next 5 items are about integrated applications, that's word processing, database, those kind of skills. So we're up to 15. Then 16 through 20, for our purposes at the University of North Texas, were most important. This one was called Teaching with Technology, and this was what the main part of the ISTE-NETS was all about, to get teachers up to the level so they could use technology for teaching. Everybody okay? So zoom forward to where before we were on the recording, we knew that there was nothing about smartphones, about social media, and so forth for this. This was published in 90, did it say at the bottom? Seems like published in 99 after her dissertation was defended, but started in 95, 96, 97. So in those days, a mobile phone, the one I remember we had for our satellite system, was a big bag phone you carried around.
Right.
And if you held it up to your head, it was, you get the idea. And by the way, today and tonight is Disney for Dr. Jones. Today is also to celebrate Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones also loved Hawaii. And some of you have heard that he was my first amateur radio teacher when I came to the University of North Texas. And Lynn was reminding me, I think Greg was still in high school. He was an early admissions student to UNT, lived in Denton, and was an accomplished radio expert even then. And to zoom forward to the Pacific Telecommunications Conference 4 years later, Greg had this idea that we could actually broadcast from the conference to our system in Texas. And so he talked the staff of the Sheraton Waikiki into letting him strap huge antennas that stuck out 20 feet out the window of I think it was the 33rd floor of the Sheraton Waikiki. And they would never allow that these days. But it worked. Pointed to ATS-1 satellite geostationary orbit somewhere over Christmas Island. And we talked to people in Denton that day on two-way radio. So, Greg, here's to you, my favorite little usher. All right. Okay, back to TPSA. So, notice there are more than 20 items here now. This started out as good enhancements should, with a strong literature review. So Dr. Christensen spent about 6 months trying to find who had published items related to new information technologies since this instrument was created. And then we pulled all the best from all the sources that we could find everywhere and put them all together and said, okay, we think this is a new batch. How do they stack up? And have I said in this class, I thought that they would come out according to the technology, like the old ISTNets did. They did not at all. In fact, let's just repeat this as a normal factor analysis first. And I think that's what we did basically 2 weeks ago. So what we're going to do is just take the new items from 20 through 34 that had never been analyzed before to see how what constructs are in there. This is similar to the two exercises of factor analysis, exploratory factor analysis, Jessica. This is not higher order.
Right.
Okay, so everybody do that. If you'll just pull this up and coach us through, somebody in the back row or the peanut gallery, what do we do if we wanted to factor analyze items 21 through 34?
Hold on a second.
So pull it up, everyone, and you'll have it open and see Jim's in the
I'm
room.
getting an error code here. Just take a look at it before I
Just say
open.
yes.
Yeah, just say yes.
Thank you.
And,
I got the same code, so as long as I do.
I don't want to open it.
yeah, what's happening at several levels now, SPSS is becoming so complicated, but the newer versions are use a different encoding standard, and so when it gets an old data set, it asks you, do you want to basically retain the old or upgrade it to the new? And then it'll give you about 16 decimal places when it does. And anyway, it's okay. Just say yes.
Okay.
They're, okay, so looking across here.
Sorry.
If
Get
you're,
rid of that.
no, that's okay. Actually, the instrument itself is
Thank you.
good for right now, just to get an idea. So 34, I can save and retrieve files in a cloud-based environment, transfer photos or other data from a smartphone, send or receive text messages. We didn't have text in 1997 at all. Download and listen to podcasts and all
When was
this.
this updated then? Because this original instrument was
Yeah,
created before,
right.
at some point. You had
Right,
to
so this was updated 2 years ago.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
okay.
And probably is in the process. What version does it say it is on there? On the bottom?
2.0.
Yeah, 2.0. So notice this is 21st century TPSA. That's what
Okay.
Dr. Christian thought we should name it to distinguish it.
Yeah.
And it's fine. So it's version 2 of the new one. So usually by version 5 or version 7, they're pretty good. And so we're only on version 2.
Okay.
Always instruments can be improved. And usually it's by adding 2 or 3 items where you find there's a hole or a weak point. Or else it's by saying, hey, we don't need 15 items on this construct. Let's cut it to the best 10. Something like that. And so, so does that help? And if you'll look at item 20 versus 21 just for a moment, write a plan for a budget-wide technology in my classroom. That's still a teaching with technology, at least in most parts of the world. If you're a technology certified educator, you're assigned to the planning committee for the school district and things like that. As opposed to integrate mobile technologies into my curriculum, that's a whole new generation, millennial kind of stuff. So that's the intention. So we're just looking at 21 through 34 right now, and so if you flip back to the SPSS. And we don't want to make this a big job.
Right.
Also, there are not that many subjects, so we don't want to try to factor in as a large number at once. Everybody okay? All right, so where do we go?
Dimension reduction.
Yeah, dimension reduction, and then
Factor.
factor, and 21 through 34 is what we will put in. And I
You
think,
just-
Barbara, and by now, you can skip descriptives, but go to extraction. And yeah, what we want to add here is a spree plot. Principal components is fine, eigenvalue 1 is okay for now, and then continue. And then we want to go to rotation and make it Varimax, and we'll continue. And we don't care about factor scores right now, go to options. It's pretty important for me to sort by size and suppress the small ones so you can see the factor structure pop out. We're not changing the relationships at all, just the order in which it presents them here. Everybody okay? So Elaine?
Punch it.
Yeah, all right, go ahead.
I already punched it.
Yeah, there we go. And so if you scroll on down, if you look at the screen plot, which is where I recommend you always look first, notice you seem to have two factors that are quite strong, well above eigenvalue 1. And maybe there are a few out there, maybe there's a third one or a fourth one, but somehow this line is kind of like that, dribbles off. So probably there is a lot of stuff in here, but two that are very much stronger than others. Would you agree?
Yes.
So how many did it pull out? Let's scroll down and see. Oh, pulled out 2, so good. All right, rotated component matrix. All right, everybody, the name of the game is when you have a new factor, Cattell would say, how do you name it? Read the strongest loader and see what it brings into your mind. Read the next strongest loader and refine, and proceed so forth. So item 30, what is it? Anybody have it there in front
Yep,
of you?
I do.
If a couple of you can just pull it out on the screen, just read it aloud.
Download and read ebooks.
Okay, download and read ebooks, that's 30. How about 31?
Download and view streaming movies or video clips.
Okay, movies, video clips, 32.
Send and receive text messages.
Okay, how about 29?
Download and listen to podcasts and audiobooks.
Okay, 34.
Save and retrieve files in a cloud-based environment.
Okay, so what do you hear in common in all of these?
Download, saving.
Seems to be.
Well, 21st century devices.
Self-efficacy.
Okay, so there are 2 points that I think are both very good here. Hold those thoughts for a moment. Let's look at the flip side. What about factor 2? What's the strongest here on item 22?
Use social media tools for instruction in the classroom.
Okay, how about 25?
Find a way to use a smartphone in my classroom.
21?
Integrate mobile technologies into my curriculum.
Okay, what are you getting a hint here? What are all these about?
Teaching.
Mobile.
Mobile.
In the classroom.
Yeah, it's all classroom environment.
Oh,
It's all about
classroom.
integration of the technologies. 26, let's just check up a couple of more.
Find a way to use a smartphone in my classroom for student responses.
Okay, and so forth. All right, so factor 2 is all about stuff that I can use to teach in my classroom for my students to learn. If you study in detail, you'll find factor 1 is distinguished by stuff that teachers felt they can use for their own professional development or communication for them to learn.
So, I'm sorry.
And so, but let me just finish the sentence. So I was wrong when I thought it would come out based on smartphones and social media and stuff like that. It did not. Today, teachers see new information technologies only in 2 dimensions. is this something new that I can use so I will be up to speed and learn and keep up with my peers and
Fantastic.
everything? Or is this something I can use for my students with them in the classroom for them to learn? So it all stacks up contrary to what I thought. It's not about what the technology is anymore, it's what you use it for. Now, Sheila, I'm sorry, you were saying?
So when you say you write this up, do you talk about the instrument and what it, like what you just said when you write it on your paper? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, you do.
I know, I know it sounds silly. I just-
Yeah.
No, it's not silly. It's
Okay.
great reiteration.
Yeah, no, it's not silly at all. In fact, that's the heart of it. In
Okay.
fact, I am mostly sending back all the papers I get about this kind of stuff. Because everyone just says, as shown in the factor structure, we have two
Okay.
nice factors.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I don't care. What are those
That's,
factors?
that's the psycho part
Yeah, and
Okay.
so I send that paper
of the
back and go,
psychometrics. Why?
Yeah.
This person needs to tell me what the hammer made. So,
Okay.
and so, yes, that's
I
the
mean, I know
most
it
important
seems
part.
like it's obvious, but I feel like we always
Nothing
are
is
talking.
obvious.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's, and by the way, there are people who might disagree that when they read these items, you know,
Okay.
they mean something else. And for me, it's not so clear what this means until you contrast it with that.
Okay.
And remember, these are orthogonal. They're independent. You could really think that you're pretty good at stuff for like Facebook and all of that for communication among your peers. I don't know about all of you, but I do not be a friend with my students on Facebook. And that was a real point of contention 9 years ago, because when our department started this new distributed program, Facebook was set aside as a major medium of communication to your predecessors. I'm one of the few who said, I can see that's trouble. Most of you are all adults and grown up. But it just doesn't work when they're college kids. And I have a feeling if you're a high school teacher, it doesn't work.
No, we
No.
do not allow our teachers.
Right,
We-
and now there are policies, but there were none of these
Right.
before.
That's right.
So it's 4 years ago that our legal counsel at the university decreed there must be an avenue outside of Facebook that is the official communication channel with all of you.
That's right.
And I was relieved.
Good.
Yeah.
So
A lot of people lost their jobs over it.
Right, so, and that's not to say that it's not extremely useful for all of you and your networks and so forth, that's fine. But let's don't make it the official channel of the university, that's not what it's built for.
I think it crosses the line with personal and professional, and that's where you get into trouble.
Yeah.
There's no policy at Midwestern, which is shocking.
Yeah,
But I tell my students, if I'm responsible for your grade, there's no way I'm putting myself out there for you to say, well, you're friends with so-and-so on Facebook, so she
Right.
missed your class and I didn't, or, you know,
Exactly.
who knows what they can come up with.
well, sure.
So I'm like,
And,
no, if you're a student, we're not friends.
and
So-
all of you now know that with other mechanisms, I guess it would be Snapchat and a few others, that they're clearly over on the other side of the line as
Yeah.
far as what's
Yeah.
professional communication
Right.
versus
Right.
personal. Well, anyway, these are all points, so does everybody get this in a nutshell?
yeah.
We could spend the whole hour just exploring these with the same kind of techniques you saw yesterday, but I'm not going to, okay? So there were two new constructs, and so now if you go under Window, Analyze, view the data set, that data file, the SAV file, if you scroll all the way out to the right,
Oops.
yeah, over here, what's out here is these subscales are already created for you in this data set. So this is items 1 through 5 about email, the average scale score. This is about the World Wide Web, 6 through 10. This is about integrated applications, 11 through 15. This is 16 through 20, teaching with technology. This is the subscale mobile communication. This must be the one that's factor 1 for you guys. In fact, you might want to change it to that.
What would you like? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay, we'll leave it the way it is.
Okay.
And I think this must be the one about using mobile technology, smartphones and so forth for students. We will know soon when we finish the higher order analysis. I'm actually not sure which one of these is factor 1 and which is factor 2 as we just saw them right now. but they're all coded already for you. You could have gone through and looked at those, at the items that Barbara made a square around,
Yes,
and you'll average across those and produce this scale. Factor 2, same thing, produce this scale. So we're making a scale score for every subject. You have to do that. So now we have 6 scales in this, produced from this instrument. Everyone okay? All right, higher order factor analysis. Now we're going to use the scales as the variables and see how they come out at the next higher level.
okay.
All right, so how do we do this? We'll analyze,
Oops, sorry.
and dimension reduction factor, it's all pretty much the same.
So I'm gonna
You're
take
gonna
all
these
this
individual
out.
items out, and we're going to factor analyze conglomerates of the items.
So just to clarify one thing, please, as I'm putting this in.
Right.
So the original data set that I had put into SPSS would not have included the subscales because I would not have gotten there yet.
Correct.
So then I have to, once I run the factor analysis, I then determine that
What
I
the
have to now
scales-
produce subscales. Now I have to go
Right.
back into this
Data set,
data
right.
set document and load in my subset so that it's now here all together.
Yeah,
But you've
usually-
taken care of that for us.
Yeah, usually you don't load it, you compute it under transform, and I don't know if we've been
No,
through that lately or not.
That's okay, but we,
But anyway, however you get them in there. And
okay,
so-
but you can, there is a process to go through it where you could transform, put it in, it would automatically load into the data set. One
Yeah,
would hope.
And let's just do one quick example, so if you'll just
Cancel
here
out of
for a
this,
moment.
thank you.
We're not gonna go through with this, but under transform,
Yes,
compute variable, and you're gonna call it like, your target variable is F1, um, maybe new tech PD or something like that. That's what we found, it was new information technology. All right, so this was the first square that we produced on the instrument.
Yes.
And if you, I don't remember exactly what the items were, but the first one was 30, I remember. You remember in the factor
Yes.
loading order?
30, yeah, I've got it right.
Okay, so you would, what I would put in is mean, MEAN.
okay.
Because
MEAN.
there's a special function, you can look it up, to produce the average, the geometric mean. And then left parentheses.
Left parentheses.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the mean of all of these. And so I'd scroll down and find them where they are. But so if you remember, it's TP 30.
30, 31.
Yeah, so arrow it in 30. Just push an arrow over and then a comma, and then 31.
Oh, I see, you have to
And you
individually,
put all the individual ones in and what it will produce. And then keep going, Jessica.
You got 32,
it's
And we're going through this because,
29?
29,
yeah, because several people in our class were not in the
34.
previous one. 34, yeah.
I'm sorry, that I haven't had quite enough coffee.
23, 24, and 27.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need a comma there, and parentheses?
Closed. Everybody okay? Okay, and so now we just punch OK, like do Elaine style. And if you look under the window now, go back and look at your original data set. If you look all the way over to the right, there is, way over to the right.
Way over to the right.
Yeah.
There it is.
So
That's
we
the
just
comma.
created a new variable, which is that scale score.
Of that subgroup we just did.
Right.
That's how you do it by hand. And you
Right.
would do each one individually,
Right.
as
In
opposed to
fact,
batching
yeah,
them.
and
That's
we already
fine.
have in this data
I
set.
remember doing this last summer, yes.
Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah, this is a major part of your Make a Ruler course.
Yes, okay.
But some people online were not in that course.
Right.
And-
Well, and I've slept since then.
Yeah, and when we get to Joe's data, we'll probably have to do this, so we'll do this again once or twice this morning.
Great, so that's the basic ruler that we would need.
Right, so we're factor analyzing these scale scores.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so back to factor analysis now. And by the way, we could figure out which one's factor 1 by, in your data, pop it up for a moment, one more time.
The,
In the window of the data file.
Uh-huh.
the data file.
Yeah, just go to window.
Yeah, sorry. Thank
and-
you.
Yeah. And over here, if you'll scroll all the way over to your first one, notice it's 50, 4.88, 4.63. Okay, scroll left to, oh, stop right there.
Here it is,
Yeah, so now we
Oh, no.
know
5048, yeah.
4.8, and what was the third one?
Yeah,
4.63.
we may have gotten a different order.
Yeah, probably we have an item or two different,
Uh-huh.
but, oh well, I was going to say if these lined up exactly with one of these two, we would know which factor is one and which is two here, but it doesn't exactly line up. I suspect that's because your factor analysis included one or two items that we didn't.
Maybe a 0.7 or something.
Right, exactly. So does everybody see what it looks like? What was the
Oops.
third value?
4.63.
4.88, 4.63.
I didn't even see a 4.63 at all.
Did you pick any 0.7 ones? Or were those 0.8 ones? When you were giving us the numbers, 30, 31, 32, 24, those. Did you?
Oh, they stopped at 0.605 was the last one.
Yeah, that's okay. Since we're in here and there's a discrepancy, let's go ahead and make the other factor and run yours that we produced today in the higher order analysis, and that's
Sure.
real life. So we're gonna also make factor 2, and we're gonna call factor 2, we'll do
Sorry.
that from transform.
Transform, compute variables.
And now we're gonna say F2, and,
We have to change
some-
all
and
of
it's
this.
something like, yeah, but wait.
Yes,
It's
yes.
F2, something like teach new tech, because wasn't factor 2 about teaching?
Yes.
With new technologies, and take off the PD.
Yep,
And so this, to me, is meaningful as to what's the difference between these two. And then, yeah, we're gonna leave the mean part of it, but we're gonna gut the inside and replace it with those.
and what
items.
are the
Jessica?
items?
22,
Yeah, 22,
25,
Yes,
21, 26, 28, and 33.
Okay, this is actually fun.
oh.
I'm waiting to see what the numbers are.
Oh, really, you're going, oh, how's it gonna come out?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Oh, you got the spirit. Hey, so,
I'm
if
wor-
you guys turn out to be my last scaling methods, I'm so proud. You never know. I might not come back from sabbatical.
okay,
Drop the mic and go. Don't
Yeah,
you?
that's
Yeah, there you go.
ready?
All right, punch it. There. So we should get another new variable out there. And it looks like it's different from the first, so that's good. And
But
it
it looks
also
like it
looks like,
matches that other one, wait.
It doesn't match the other.
I think the orders might have changed. It depends, someone, if you put it in order of numbers, we went according to the way it was listed in the component factor analysis, right?
right.
We
yeah.
listed it that way, they may have listed it numerically in
But
order.
these numbers go according to the people's survey, so it shouldn't have
Oh,
any.
no, what I'm talking
Right.
about is this, if you we listed it according to number, 30, 31, 32, 29, which is out of numeric order. We're listing it according to this list.
Right.
So somebody else may have entered it according to numeric order.
Right, but, yes, but I think Elaine's point is
Yes.
that if you average them, it shouldn't matter which one you put in first.
Oh, I see, I'm
Right,
sorry.
the difference is, a couple of these variables, I think, in the middle. And on this data set, it's pretty clean where the crossover is, but see these two that are pretty strong cross-loaded?
Oh, I
We
see.
had 3 separate data sets where we factor analyzed and we did some compromise on a couple of items. I think the difference is where we have put a couple of items today versus where whatever produced that other scale did that. But I trust our stuff. That's what we're gonna go with.
Okay.
Okay, so 2 things to clean up your files when you're at this point. Barbara, when all of those variables that had nothing in them, go ahead and delete them and get rid of them.
That
in
would be
your data
great.
file. Like over here, you can just click here, and I think you can scroll on over and click.
Shift
to
select.
86,
I think, yeah, if I
and then
should,
do edit, delete. Are we out of time?
No, I think somebody joined.
Oh, okay.
edit,
So-
delete.
Yeah,
maybe?
cut all of those, and it'll take a little while, but now you won't have to scroll so
Woohoo!
far. Everybody see? And now you want to always save your
Save.
data set before And I would give it a new
New
number
name.
on the end,
Yep.
like whatever it was, save as, and name it whatever is meaningful. Yeah, so call this, 2 or B or something like that. So you have an ABC version. Every
Now-
time I compute a new variable, I give it a new version number on the end.
Would you also include a new output, or it doesn't matter?
Oh, no, I wouldn't worry about that yet. But you may, depends on how you can systematically keep it and refer back to in case you made a mistake
Mhm.
sometime and go back to your earlier version. Everybody okay? Now let's get to the main point of this. So we're going to factor analyze these factors, factor analyze these scales. And so we're going to analyze dimension reduction factor, and we're going to take all these items out.
Now, are we just gonna do the ones we just made?
Yes.
One
We're
at
gonna
a
use.
time, or you do them together?
No, wait, no, not just the ones we made, but we're going to include the ones we made instead of those other 2 computed. So you're gonna use the first 4 classical TPSA scales and include our 2 new ones. So we're going to use email, web, applications, teaching with tech. We haven't touched this stuff, not the first 4. There, and scroll them over, and we're gonna use our new 2 instead of those old
I
2.
see.
I'm with
I
you.
see.
You have to make all of the data fit into one of the rulers in order to do this. You
Exactly.
can't leave any out, okay.
Right.
And so, sorry, one other question.
And so conceptually, to answer Elaine's question, it makes no sense to mix up higher order and lower order components and throw them in one factor analysis. It will run, it just won't be meaningful.
Okay. So you
So,
really
yeah.
need more than 2 scales.
Exactly. You
to
need
run
3 or
higher
more
order.
in order to do higher order factor analysis, and you guys settled on only 2 yesterday.
Yes.
So there's no reason for you to do this.
Sounds great.
Now, but there is reason here, and there will be for others, and so let's go ahead and run them.
Yes.
And what I want to show you is some of the rules apply and some of them are off. So it extracted one construct 74% of the common variance. That's among the scales. And if you look at the scree plot, in this business, you definitely go by the picture, not the eigenvalues, because eigenvalues of eigenvalues doesn't really make sense. Therefore, it doesn't know, even though it's below 1, that's not really true because we somewhat extracted the pure already, and it's trying to now say what's pure out of the pure. So look at the picture, but not the numbers. I see what?
3.
Now, maybe
1,
3.
2.
I see 2.
Possibly.
And it looks like it's flat to me.
Yeah.
So at least 2, but probably this only did 1. Yeah, it did.
Oh.
So let's force it to 2.
Okay.
Analyze. Dimension reduction factor. It's an extraction and force it. No, it's not an
Yeah.
extraction.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, on fixed number of
Fixed
factors.
number.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Fixed
And
number.
What do we
2.
put in here is 2.
Continue.
Punch it!
Right, yay, all right,
Hey,
thanks.
what's it?
Okay, so now we're up to 86%.
86%.
Of
up
the total
for
common
2.
variance explained by using 2 higher order factors. And let's see what they are.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, rotate it. What do we see? Well, integrated applications, email, World Wide Web, they have all morphed together in some sense. And I believe that's true these days. And then what we see is.
Sorry, that was ugly.
New teaching with technology, all teaching with technology have married each other. And then they've also picked up a, new teaching with technology and old teaching with technology. And then
They
this
picked
one
up the
is-
subtech.
And they have adopted the teacher professional development of the new realm. Now, remember Barbara said maybe there's 3? Let's try it and see if this one
Well, I
separates out.
have a
or not.
question before we get there
Do you-
because,
Do y'all understand? Remember, this is for teachers' own professional
Right.
development. This is for,
Right.
so this was
Yeah.
this was the old stuff to use to teach in your classroom. If you read the items, this is new stuff.
yeah,
But this is the major finding
Right.
out of this, that indeed teachers need old teaching with technology skills, and they need new ones as well. And those 2 are the same kind of animal, is what we just concluded. Notice 0.9, 0.8 drops down to 0.6. So yeah, it belongs in there if we force it to 2, but This one is kind of a different animal, it indicates. So you had a question, someone?
Well, that's exactly what I was looking at, is the F1. It seems that it could go either way.
Yeah, so let's do three.
So that's why I was saying that could be
Yeah,
3.
so force it to 3,
Yay.
and then,
Now, I have a question about determining where it was. We were talking about determining the original, oy vey, I don't know if I'm going to get there. Where you had determined in the previous analysis up here that things were going to be in certain groups or factors, and there were some overlap here, and we had
Right.
determined that, okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one, this one. Said, well, maybe these were questionable, and we had put them into this first factor, and maybe the previous group had put them into a different factor. So do you stay consistent with the determination based on the numbers? So if you say, well, anything above, or are you actually going, anything above, let me finish my sentence, sorry, 0.58 goes in
Yeah.
this or goes in that. Do you stay consistent then in the next run that we just did?
yeah.
Am I being clear about that question?
Let me see if I think I can answer your question.
Okay,
Once you have settled on a construct, stay with the same items for different populations. Unless you just find that for every population it's messed up, then you'll just write another paper and say, oh, we messed up. We need to move these 2 items over to another factor. So you don't go to one study and change these items over here and then back again because you don't really have the same constructs. So you don't strictly, in the validation study where you decide where you're going to stick them and stick with it, yeah, you can use that rule of thumb of 0.5, but as you pointed out, we have a 0.5 over here, so that it doesn't work if we just use the rule of 0.5 as a cutoff. You never put the same item on 2 constructs.
Right.
Never.
Now when
That
we-
destroys their independence.
right. So now when we go to the next, so if I say, okay, look, anything above, let's say 0.5 will go into a particular construct or factor. When I then run this multi-level down here that we just did, do I then say the same here? Because now we're determining, well, where is
No.
this?
Yeah, and so the answer is no, it's a completely different game when you're doing exploratory higher order factor analysis. You're trying to figure out how many boxes do we draw at the higher level.
Okay,
And so just the way the eigenvalue rule is off, so are these other ones.
great, thank you. So now we're
So-
going to force it to 3.
Yeah, force it to 3 and then we'll.
Spoiler alert,
Yeah.
it's 3.
Oh, no, well, wait.
They don't wait for me for anything, man.
It's on the screen.
Hey,
Well,
look at our company.
No, I think it was, let's run it, Barbara, okay, so we can get it on the screen.
All right.
Extractions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, extraction, and we're forcing it to 3 factors and.
That was epic.
That was classic of my
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
shit.
of my group.
Yeah.
I'll be
So
rambling on,
notice
they'll
we're up
just
to
be-
91% of everything that's in there. That's a lot. And,
Well, I'm feeling good that I said 3 originally, just so
okay,
you
well,
know.
Keep going and let's.
Not bad for a music
Cross the
teacher.
bar.
There you go.
Please, okay.
Yes,
please
sir.
stop.
Sorry.
So, what do we see?
It pulled it out as a 0.78.
Yeah.
So
And-
those 3 are still the same, new and old are together,
Ah.
and it pulled PD out.
Yeah, and so, old teaching with technology, new teaching with technology, they're thankfully, this was the main goal of renovating the TPSA, and it happened, that these 2 were together.
Yeah.
So that, the old stuff we can't throw away, we just have to add the new.
Yeah.
And then this one, using smartphones for texting with your friends and your own professional development for your professional learning network is actually what they're being called these days. It is really a new animal, and yeah, this is a nice, here we'll take a picture of this. There.
Oh, I'd
The,
make my lines a little more
This is
straight.
a very
Hold on one second.
elegant.
Wait.
No,
Oh, shoot.
because we're gonna go on. Okay, everybody, two more analysis. Well, they come out the same if you look at this from hierarchical cluster analysis and multidimensional scaling. We can do that for the higher objects as well, so let's do it.
Oh, you can do it for the higher objects?
Of
Yeah,
course.
because we can select them
You
now
can
as
scale-
variables.
You can scale anything because
Can't
there are
believe
no
I'm following
higher
this.
assumptions about the data.
Okay, so can I ask another probably
Yep.
dumb question?
Ah,
So you, one of the ways we were separating out our paper was I was gonna look at our data as 3 factors instead of 2.
Yep,
So then would I do this?
you could, yes.
Okay,
So yes, you could.
okay,
Now, but let's
Okay,
press
myself
on,
over.
everybody.
Yes,
Now, we
sir.
started with higher order factor analysis.
okay.
If we were going to cluster analysis, we'd do the same thing for these scales. Let's do it.
Okay.
Scale, isn't it that we're doing? Multi-dimensional scaling, yes?
No, we're
No,
going to,
I went
we're
too
going
far
to
ahead.
classify, and then
Oh, here it is.
hierarchical cluster.
I jumped ahead. I got so excited. And now the
We're-
variables we're selecting are the new
are the
items.
scales. So the first 4
Sorry,
old ones.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Right.
and then
our 2 new ones.
2 new ones. Okay,
They need to arrow them in.
oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
No,
I-
no, at
Up
the top
top.
arrow.
Oh, my bad,
Right.
thank you.
And then if
Just
you
check.
remember, we want to cluster the
Variables.
variables, and we want to use plots to get us a dendrogram up at the top.
You like horizontal too, if I remember?
Yeah, and click on dendrogram.
Dendrogram and
everybody
horizontal.
okay? Are y'all able to
Continue.
do this out there?
Yep.
Great, and so go ahead and press continue, and then we'll punch OK, and we even made you jump on lane this time.
You were
There.
before me.
Yeah.
So
Well,
here's what we
remember,
have.
Spoiler alert for one lane. Okay, so what do you see?
That's great.
Well, first of all, this is what actually I have seen out in the professional development world. There's really no distinction between email and web anymore because a lot of people are emailing on the web. And the next will be that there's no distinction between smartphone tools and email and web because we're evolving to where we don't use that stuff. We use this stuff for these kind of things. And so the integrated apps are the regular word processor and that kind of thing. They're all still in their cluster. Do you see that? And then what happened
PD is
here?
not by itself.
Yeah, what happened here actually is, yeah, the new PD is by itself out there. But if we were trying to say what is the pattern most like, it's actually more like those old, like the traditional basic technology skills. So this adds something to it. Yes, the PD factor is all on its own.
But it's
But
closer.
it's actually not like teaching with technology or teaching with old technology or like this. If we had to put it somewhere, it's a little bit more like learning how to use email. And that was going back to what you noticed at first, download a movie from the web and that kind of stuff is sort of like the old days when people went, I don't have any clue how to get my email. And so now I don't have any clue how to not get my email.
I wish.
Yeah, and so everybody okay? All right,
Yes.
so what's the third view we would look at? So this added a little information.
Now we do the,
Now we'll do multidimensional scaling and see how they come out. So we're going to do scale, multidimensional scaling, and put them all in again.
come on, come on, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the bottom 2. Oh, I gotta get them in there, sorry. 1, 2.
We want to create this
Create
from data.
distances.
Yeah, if you want to create distances, you put in is fine, and then check on the model and see if it's interval measure. Yeah, make it interval. And then all of this, the rest of this, let's just run a 2-dimensional solution
Okay.
for, and then continue.
Okay.
And the reason we would choose, yeah, punch
No, we
it.
need options, group plots.
Oh, yeah, we sure do, thank
We
you.
do.
Yeah.
I opened it.
Pictures,
Just
Alright.
group,
people,
pictures, people, pictures. Continue, and now,
And then, okay.
Pictures.
Here we
Now,
go.
we chose 2 because what the factor analysis showed was 2. And so that's the reason we went to that. Yes, Lynn?
I have an annoyance for you.
Uh-oh, okay.
Have you had a chance to file your audit rules?
Oh, no, I'm delinquent, I'm sure.
You're not quite delinquent, you have 42 minutes.
Okay,
So
good.
when you get to a break point.
Man after my own heart.
Yeah, this is much better than 8 minutes. Actually,
So what you're saying is there's
actually-
still time.
There's
Actually-
still time.
Actually, my bladder was about to burst, so this is very good. So, there. Okay, so thank you. We'll have a little break and I'll follow them right now. Thanks, Lynn.
Okay, yeah, you've
I'm
got-
sure I got a notice 2 or 3 days ago and 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I'm sure,
But-
you have 5
Sounds like
sections,
DJ.
I don't think it's gonna go to page 2, but you have 5.
Yeah,
So
I
you've got a
better
couple of
check.
dissertations and then this class. and
Yeah, yeah.
Then the residential, is it?
Yeah,
Here?
hey,
I've turned it.
Hey,
it's
have all of
right
you,
beside
have,
mine.
I just
It's
need a
in
show of
Scotland.
hands.
All right, let's go.
Have all of you attended class?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
good. I can finish my audit roll.
Do you want me to have the thermostat changed in here? Is it-
Yeah,
I
we-
think we
I turned it
changed
down, but I
it.
didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have engineering do it for you.
Yeah, it was too
What would
cold the
feel
first
good?
day and now it's way too hot.
Okay, what would feel good? Like 68? You're pregnant.
Yeah, yeah.
75.
I'm good
You
with
make her
that.
company.
Let's start at 70, see what happens, please.
70 is fine.
I keep my house at 68, even when I'm not pregnant.
Okay.
Thank you, Lynn,
You're welcome.
and I'm
I'm with
glad I'm not delinquent.
Thank you,
Okay,
Chris. Sorry to
so everybody a quick look before the break. And
Yeah, we
then,
can't wait.
okay, yes, anticipation. So what does it look like?
You have
Okay, first of
92.
all, we could capture 92% of all the information, that's good. What does the picture look like? Well, how did it come out?
Oh.
Well,
Yes.
isn't this interesting?
Wow.
So what do you see?
Well, you forced it for 2 here, so
Yeah,
there's 1.
Well, yeah.
If you're
so
going by
first-
sides, which
Yeah.
it seems to be.
Yeah, so go by clusters to begin with.
Okay.
These guys are it's what we knew. They're all kind of together, these 3, right? And actually, if that's the old stuff, then this is the new stuff. That looks like what the x-axis might be. Is that possible?
Old, new.
Well, let's just call it, traditional, established,
Traditional.
and then new emerging,
Yes.
something like that. And then sub-tech, sub-apps, sub-email, sub-web, teaching with new technology, so that's, and professional development.
Bless
What do you think this one is, up and down?
It's all,
Well,
it's
I'm
new
not
stuff. I
I'm
don't
not
know.
sure, you can think about it. At first I thought, well, maybe this was, teacher stuff for them, and this is teaching stuff.
Interesting, I've been running the old scales, I didn't make
Uh-huh.
the 2 new ones, and
Yeah.
everything up until now has been very closely the same.
Right.
This is completely different than what I'm seeing, what you're seeing up there.
Okay,
So for some reason, the old data in this, this multidimensional scaling is much different than
Mhm.
what you're seeing. But the other 2 were very similar, so I find that interesting.
Can I check to make sure I ran it correctly? I think we
Yeah,
did.
yeah, but-
Mine looks the same as yours.
Okay, good,
yeah,
thank
no,
you.
we could, but we won't.
okay.
And also what Elaine says is very important. Actually, this data set is just a fraction of the whole thing. That's why we chopped it out. So in some sense, I trust the old factors better than the new ones because they were derived from a much larger set.
Mhm.
Usually when we make a sample data set, we chop down and give
Sure.
about 20% of the real data or something like that. And so, let's don't try to overinterpret what we're seeing here, but we've been through the process and what Elaine said. In fact, we can run that if you want. That'll be our last run with the old 2 factors.
Right.
We won't change very much, but if you'll do analyze,
Multidimensional.
yeah,
Where'd I go?
it's
Yeah,
under
scale.
scale.
Sorry, thank you.
And all we do is take out those last 2,
Just take them out.
yeah, of those and put in the
Yeah.
old versions.
Right.
These guys.
Right.
Ah, that's the difference. I see.
And then, so just press OK.
I think it's all the options are
And
set.
then let's see what this picture looks like. Elaine's point was.
Oh,
it's
look at that.
quite different.
Yes, yeah, that's the first thing
Oh,
I
yeah,
saw.
we went
was
up to
0.97.
98%, and so
Yeah.
this gives me a hint that,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm seeing. That was the first thing, I was like, wow, big difference, 90 to 97, or
Yeah.
98.
So this is a new one that, I mean, it's your old one, but it's new for us today. And this is the other one, is that it?
Yeah, which one's factor 1 and which one's factor 2? And anyone remind me?
Yeah, factor 1 was the CONN, factor
Okay.
2 was the mobile.
Okay, and so So
Oh,
this
so-
is-
That's professional development.
Right.
And the other one was using it in your classroom. That's
Okay.
what I was interpreting from your
Okay.
scales.
Well, and so that probably would be okay. So what we have is one extreme out here. If we were doing this, forgetting their axes but ours, there's almost like a cut here, cut here, cut here. And then these three things would be together. Does that line up? These two things would be together?
So you're
Yeah,
saying,
Is that correct?
yeah.
you're saying make the cuts this way.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, just rotate this 45 degrees. The
Yeah.
program doesn't know
Right.
how to rotate it.
Right.
And then if
Yeah.
you did that, you'll have actually three factors
Yeah.
that I would see from this perspective. And do they align more or less with what we got out of the higher order factor analysis? I guess they
Let's-
don't.
we have to look
Then
back.
Yeah, this one, PD hung by itself.
Yes,
Right.
good.
The old teaching with technology and the new teaching with technology
Yeah.
hung
Yep.
together, and then
Yeah.
these three all
Yeah.
morphed into one. Yeah, so done. Everybody okay?
Yep.
So you can apply the same techniques at a whole level up. I call this telescoping. That actually, if you start from the highest level and move down, down, down till finally the individual items. And so there's nothing sacred about what level scaling techniques apply to. Everybody okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break while I can do my audit rolls. And if I
And
can
go to
pull
the
out my
bathroom.
machine.
Yeah, bathroom might be more important.
Yeah, we'll do that first, and then